Hey, welcome back. Uh, Last video we discussed about current crisis, the oil sector, and how it is impacting the whole world. We discussed about the source of the present crisis, the Hormuz Strait, and how the war in West Asia causing conflict across the world and its global economic impact. In this video, we'll see some other details. We'll start with the details of what are the basic factors over the years which has been responsible for oil conflicts, especially the oil conflict, and what has been the impact of any oil crisis over all these years. Now, if you see interestingly, most of the crises and especially the oil crisis and always leads to some kind of war. In fact, it is precise to say most of the wars associated with West Asia, especially between US and any other West Asian country, always in some or other way associated in terms of oil. Now, let us see the broad reasons in which a crisis happens, especially the conflict and war. If you see since last 5 decades, the basic reason for oil crisis, one could be due to the production decision by what we call as the OPEC. Now, what is OPEC? We'll discuss it briefly. Okay. Then, any war between US and any of the West Asian countries or conflict between some of the West Asian countries. And this ends up resulting in oil prices. So basically, this results in a larger geopolitical conflict. Now, if you see the last 5 to 10 years, the major reason has been the production decision of OPEC. Uh, a few general geopolitical conflicts in Middle East, especially between Iran and Iraq, Iraq and US, and Israel and its neighboring countries. And in the last few years, it is the Russia-Ukraine tension. So, having seen the basic reason for the conflict, now we'll see some of the broad impacts of such oil crisis. We know now clearly the broader impact. We actually now feel immediate impact of oil is the energy security concern across the world. We know countries like India, which almost more than 80 to 85% of dependency oil, will have a major impact. You can see even a shutting down of a place like Hormuz Strait, which probably controls 20-25% of the trade, can have a profound impact on the energy security, availability, and hence the economy. So, energy security. And the next thing is when there is a crisis in oil, it immediately impacts the transportation and increasing the transportation cost. And it's all again results in overall price rise and inflation pressure. Now, together, this energy security concerns and inflation pressures results in eroding of people's savings, a lot of uncertainty, and volatility in investment, and overall this ends up slowing down economic growth. Since substantial uh, proportion of the world nations depends upon oil in Asia, the oil crisis results in huge volatility of markets, inflationary pressure, and energy insecurity, and it has got the impact of slowing down the economy overall. Now we'll discuss about what we started, what we call some of the basic definitions, forums, and uh, institutions or organizations associated with oil. OPEC has been the lead producer of oil. OPEC is what do you call it as? the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, which remains most influential players in the global oil. The organization continues coordinating production policies to stabilize prices and remember revenues. Of course, organization has got alternatives now. We have got US has got probably own resources, the renewable energy resources are rising in the world. So, despite all these alternatives, there's still a major dependency on oil is for the OPEC nation. Also, there are leading oil companies. Normally, the term used to understand them is called the seven sisters of oil companies, have been dominating the field of oil industry for the last 50 years. And the seven sisters originally are the Standard Oil, the Royal Dutch Shell, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, the Gulf Oil, Texaco. Today, some of the largest oil companies which dominate the oil exploration, transmission, and sales are the Saudi Arabian Aramco, ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, BP, the Total Energy, the China National Petroleum Corporation, Qatar Energy, Petrobras, Sinopec, and these are probably known as the new seven system. And we have the basic, as we discussed, basic two pricing mechanism in the oil industry, the Brent crude and WTI. The Brent crude remains the main benchmark of international oil pricing, and as the recent prices fluctuated between almost $97 to $100 per barrel. The other one is WTI is West Texas Intermediate, is a major US benchmark crude oil. Even the WTI prices recently traded at $90 to $92 per barrel. Having discussed that, our aim is to today discuss and take an anatomy of the oil stock, the historical context. So whenever there is an anatomy of oil stock, what has been the reason and what has been the impact? That's our aim. The first major one has been the 1970s, 73, 74, to be precise, the Arab oil embargo, which has been the major. Now, during that time, the oil price almost shifted between $3 per barrel to $12. Now, just think of it. 50 years back, it was selling at $3 to $12 range. Now, it's almost touching $100 per barrel. The global impact of such an Arab embargo is global stagflation and recession. Now, the next one to be pointed out here is what we call it as the uh, 1780 Iranian Revolution. This was another thing, major issue, where the barrel price was ranging from $13 to $36. The Iranian Revolution is at war, so which resulted across the world and nearby areas in inflation surge and so on. Now, it's not always a rise. Uh, at one point of time, what we call it as the Saudi Arab surge in production, which actually resulted in what do you call it as a fall in the price. So, see, the other point is also very important. Not always oil goes up, if you see. And the next thing is the 1990-91 Gulf, which is very important to understand because it is just during this Gulf War a major changes across were happening just before the national. It was towards the end of 80s, the USSR with its reformist policies perestroika started collapsing, the Soviet Union. So, then the other end was the collapse of Berlin Wall, the fall of USSR, where it was dividing West and East Germany. And there was this famous Gulf War, between the Iraqi president Saddam Hussein, who decided to invade the neighborhood countries and set of countries, different countries led by United States of America to support those neighborhood countries, which resulted in a major war. The oil prices almost went from $17 to $36 per barrel in the Gulf War, and there was a short global recession. India had a major impact where India's balance of payment got a hit, and they have to initiate what we call the fiscal or major deemed economic reforms. One, it didn't stop there. We then had the 2003 or 2008 crisis, the China demand, which also resulted in the oil prices, which has been gone up, but only to fall in 2008 crisis for some time, again go up to um, the global financial crisis. But the end of the intensity of global financial crisis going up, the demand started collapsing. So there was always a continuous rise and fall, and any global crisis obviously resulted in a huge volatility. Then have US scale revolution. Then we have what do you call it as the late 2020 COVID, which actually the historic demand started collapsing. That's one of the major oil crises. And from that, we have now a huge oil crisis as we started discussing about the Hormuz crisis. So you understand that the kind of impact oil price volatility has through. And the key reasons, the last 50 years, the oil prices, especially the geopolitical dynamics in West Asia, has a profound impact on not just the West Asian economy or society, in fact, across the global economy. Thank you. We continue to discuss the other topics.